Hola, soy Alejandro Sauquillo y estoy aquí hoy con el gran Joe, el inigualable Joe Justice, that is going to speak about the Tesla Investor Day. How are you, Joe?
I'm fantastic, Alejandro, and great to see you.
The reason why I have invited Joe to my show once again, is already the fourth time, is that he's the person to really explain to all of us what the Investor Day is about, because he's the founder and CEO of Wikispeed, a company that has world record assembling cars. He's also an Agile guru. He's reading Scrum Master, that I will join the book, and I recommend it to ones that want to learn how to do Agile in their companies. He has worked in Tesla for in 2020, and before that he ran a program about Agile. And now, not only now, before during a long time, he has been in consulting of all the top industrial companies, automotive companies such as BMW, Mercedes, Toyota. And right now you have a course, the JDX course, that is to teach how the mass companies work. Is it right, or did I sum it right? Correctly?
Perfectly, Alejandro. I'm so grateful. Yes, I'm very lucky in my career. I've worked with most of the major automotive and aerospace companies around the world. Very lucky. And for our purposes here, talking about Investor Day, I worked in Tesla. I was a full-time employee, and before that consulted to Tesla since 2010. And there's some pieces of Investor Day that are very important to the future health of manufacturing globally, and specifically Tesla and the EV transition movement and the energy transition movement. And some of it is not clearly understood. There are some secrets laying out in the open, and I would like to unpack those together with you and our audience so people can see how amazing some of what was shown really is.
And apart from what we've said and the intro and what you're doing, you are also a tech person. You are like a programmer. You started as a developer, and you worked also with Microsoft and Amazon, because during the presentation with the unboxed process, they speak about the parallel type of work that you speak a lot in your interviews. So I wanted to ask you, because in the email when I asked you to come to this interview, you've said me, okay, I'm really happy because now there's so many things that have been disclosed that I wasn't able to speak about. So which things are you most excited that now you can share with the world that you couldn't before? Because obviously you had a NDA and there were many things that you couldn't speak about.
The unboxed process, I was able to talk about it abstractly before, but the idea of having massively parallel production and design, I'd said loosely, now we have images of it, video clips of it, pictures of people doing it. And I do too on my own phone, but I had chosen not to release those. I don't think it would be appropriate, and I didn't have explicit permission to do so. Now Tesla has officially released images, videos, pictures, renderings of exactly how massively parallel manufacturing and design works. And we have Franz on record and Lars on record saying we have design, engineering, automation, supply chain in one room. They're small teams working together full time. And I'd been able to talk about that loosely and indirectly. If anyone has ever done group work of this type, how effective that is not understood widely. Most people are comfortable sending an email off to someone on the supply chain team and waiting a few hours, days, weeks, or even months for a reply. And what the Musk companies do is they're in one room. And you talk to each other in real time. That's what I did when I was working there. It's what everyone does. And now we have video of it. We have people directly talking about it. The unboxed process animations are what I dreamed Tesla would release. And the speed allowed by that process is less important than the cost reduction allowed by that process. Sorry, the speed is more important than the cost reduction. And even more important than that is the improvement rate. And that still, I don't think has been animated clearly. I loved the image of showing the cost reduction in the center screen and the weight reduction in the center screen. Maybe most people still didn't realize. Most companies, they start buying their center screen from a supplier, and they hold the supplier to make the same version, even if the supplier wants to make a change or an improvement. They're not allowed for years, at least 2.5 years. And in Tesla, you see in 2.5 years, they've dropped the cost and weight by what, half? I don't have the image in front of me right now, but so the compounding innovation is even more important than the cost reduction, and that's even more important than even the speed of production. And we see now real official data released that I would have loved to release myself. We see official data released as to daily improvements in product manufacturing, product processes, because of this unboxed process. We were experimenting with pieces of that in 2020. There absolutely were breakout lines, and I've produced an animation on my YouTube channel, which is not nearly as elegant. It's clear and maybe has some additional information, but it's not nearly as elegant as the unboxed process animation that we just saw released. Absolutely phenomenal.
Joe, is it okay if right now we show the clip of how manufacturing, traditional manufacturing also in Tesla has been made, and what this unboxed process that you're speaking about is going to be? Hold on. And the share screen. Let me see. You won't hear, but it's okay because I want you to speak. So let me see if you see right now, Franz and do you see them?
I do. I see Franz and Lars.
Okay.
There it is. We have traditional vehicle manufacturing, which is still amazing. I mean, as they pointed out, Toyota just called this a work of art, and many people consider Toyota as experts in manufacturing. And this is old and slow. You take the vehicle apart after you put it together, and then you put it together again. Most of the time the vehicle spends in the facilities in traditional manufacturing processes like this, it's just sitting there untouched. And one of the reasons is because the pieces you want to work on are covered. And Lars talks about work density. And in fact, all of us in manufacturing talk about work density. There's only so many positions you can have humans working on the car at any given time when it's assembled this way. And then we compare that to an unboxed process where we blow the car apart and work on it in many separate work streams at once. Here we have the body being placed over the here we have the unboxed process. This image, I'd like to explain. This is, I don't think most people are as excited about this image as they should be. So we have the fundamental constraint in traditional manufacturing. How many humans or Optimus robots or even traditional robots like the KUKA arms or FANUC arms that can effectively work on a vehicle size at a time. And we measure this in cubic meters. How many points of work fit per cubic meter? And you see in traditional manufacturing process, it's often a maximum of 4. Now these vehicles are on automated carts, or in some cases slowly driving themselves, depending on area of assembly. And they're moving up and down on elevators. Very often you can only work on the sides of the vehicle. You have short moments in time you can work on the front and back. An unboxed process, you don't assemble the car fully until the very end. Now, there's a piece of text that I'm very glad Lars said that's fundamental to why this works. Each of these pieces are being tested continuously. You don't wait for final testing at the end. So in this case, we have the front subframe being worked on by 4 people. That means the rear subframe is also being worked on by 4 people. That means the left half of the car, right half of the car are each also being worked on by 4 or more people. You want about 3 to 5 people in each of these mobs, each of these groups. The floor is also being worked on by a group of approximately 3 to 5 people, as is the interior package. You have massively parallel work. And as you've seen in some of the YouTube videos I put on my channel and in our earlier interviews, they're doing product design, not just assembly. So each of these pieces is improving as they build. By doing an unboxed process, that is a multiplier of the rate of possible improvement, cost reductions, speed improvements, and also new features, more efficient motors, higher power, longer range, more efficient heat pump, better sound density, better sounding stereo systems, a better experience in the glass, inside the glass in the car. So in a traditional automotive manufacturing process, which has already been leading, already was the best in the world, you had a point of work density of approximately 4 per vehicle size. The unbox process allows that to be, let me see if I got the math right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. I think it's actually 8. I think I'm not counting one of the modules correctly.
If you want, I can continue the video and
sure,
we can see. Yeah.
What we should reasonably expect is for the next gen product to not only be 8 times better, part of which has been teased by the fact that it'll cost 50% as much to produce, but also we'll expect it to improve 8 times faster. The Model S has been increasing in horsepower, in power, approximately 70 horsepower a year since introduction. We will expect the unbox process to be about 8 times that. Yeah, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 8. They're not all animated here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 2 more. So these parallel points of work all have 3 to 5 people working on them per car, and there's more than one line also working continuously. So you have multiple versions in production at once. Now each of those modules was fully tested independently, and now they're integration tested. And that's only possible because Tesla makes the factory software, the software that runs the factory, and the factory that runs in the car together, whereas every other car company in the world, those are both outsourced to different companies. So they talk to each other. The factory is basically a giant phone, right, that has cars being built inside it, and the cars are basically phones on wheels, right? Well, Tesla makes the software for both directly, so they communicate. So we have unit testing on each of these modules as they're being built, including new version introduced continuously, which you saw on like the center screen. I'm very grateful for that graphic. The center screen cost drop. You can see that it's not every 2.5 years. It's continuous. There's continuous release of new product. And that's just the center screen. So that's part of one of these modules. So these modules have submodules, and each of those submodules have a mob of people working on them, 3, 4, 5 people. Net result, the rate at which the product improves, we can expect it to be 8 times faster Model Y. And Model Y is already a work of art.
I was trying to find, okay, I will add it later, like the center screen. I also wanted to ask you, because I don't know if you've seen, there's an interesting video that I recommend everyone from Autoline, John McElroy, that he says that the current assembly line there's a 33% waste in time. Because he says, I quote, a worker has typically 40 seconds to do their task and 20 seconds to walk back. So those 20 seconds are waste. There's no value. So how is this unboxed process going to be different? And what is going to be this reduction in time?
Well, the idea is these are going to be fully automated, and already it's highly automated. So these drawings of people, we can think of them as points of work, right? So already that concept is already improved on. But more to that point, instead of having single one-piece continuous flow as a goal, which is a very old goal that was revolutionary compared to the original assembly line concepts in 1922, that's really old thinking now. So the idea of a slow, constantly moving, or even fast, constantly moving assembly line of continuous integration is by definition a bottleneck. Single one-piece continuous flow is actually the worst possible model for rate of innovation. The only thing it's good at is duplication, which is what people used it to do. So at the time it was phenomenal. But now that we're in an innovation economy, it's a liability, not an advantage. Okay, so you don't have single one-piece continuous flow as a goal. So operators, now mostly automated, but points of work are done at the point of work. And you have team rooms, basically. And your team room has your module, and the modules come to you, and you do your innovation. Humans aren't there for repeat assembly. That's what machines are for. When there are humans in a Musk company, they're testing new designs. They're attempting to develop superior product. That's why humans are there. And there's 65,000 humans in a Tesla factory. Like that's a lot of continuous innovation. Okay, that's why humans are there. Well, the work comes to you instead of a traditional manufacturing line where you walk alongside the vehicle doing your work and then walk back to the next within your takt time to do your next standardized work procedure. Standardized work is for robots, and standardized work is updated more than once a day through software, over the air, through the factory, the software that runs the factory. So we won't have humans walking along or even riding on a moving walkway with the product. You have humans testing innovation, and the product is called, they basically summon it, and then it is summoned to its next useful place, as opposed to humans doing any walking. Now, you also have much less of humans in like chairs on carts to do physical work. There's still some of that, but very, very little. That's almost entirely automated. Humans are on laptops and working with forming machines and testing new work. They're very little. We call them manufacturing employees. But their job is to engineer, not to snap stuff together. So they're not walking back and forth, to your point about 20 seconds of walking back. That's changed in the idea that we're no longer doing single one-piece continuous flow. We have a one-boxed system. And also, as we talked about before, these parts are moving in multiple dimensions anyway. So it's not like we're climbing up a ladder as we're doing our work and then climbing back down. The cars are being lifted away or elevated down. And we stay in situ.
About your last point, I think it was Lars or Franz, they pointed out that this new system also is going to avoid these heavy objects. Like before, as they assembled the whole car and they had to move it around, they needed like huge robots to be moving. Now, as they're going to be like 8 small pieces or smaller pieces, it's going to be faster, easier. It won't require such a big, like heavy lifting. And also, like, I think you've said it before, it's going to be much easier to automate, to be able to let Optimus to be working there as before, like they had to be bending and entering the car, and they were like really, really difficult for robots.
A goal is for these chunks, these pieces, to stay under 100 kilograms for as long as possible, because that's a very workable weight with casters and basic rolling systems, and even for humans to cope with if they have to. Now, even better to be lighter. 20 kilograms is amazing. A normal human, Optimus is rated to work with 20 kilograms all day, full shift length. Right, and 2 Optimists or 2 humans can cope with 40, 60 kilograms without much issue, depending on what the work position is. 100 kilograms or down, you have much simpler machinery used, and so that's the goal, to keep them at that for as long as possible, and at least in the beginning, even under 20 kilograms. So you have single human size, elegant, easy working.
And one other question, Joe, why no other company has done this unboxed process until now, Tesla?
There is a primary reason, which is that, as Musk also says, most humans think by comparison. They haven't seen the process before, so they only attempt to copy what they've seen and improve on what they've seen. And since seeing the assembly line seemingly disrupt the craftsperson model, people attempt to continue copying a traditional assembly line. So that's, most people reason by analogy as opposed to first principles. That's one. But then you have the Toyota production system famously talking about standing in one place for hours or days without talking, just taking notes and watching. And you'd think with this type of thinking opportunity, you'd imagine you'd have radical, interesting concepts. Well, that's where the concept of power distance comes in. Power distance is how comfortable someone is talking to their boss or their boss's boss, especially about something they think their boss or boss's boss doesn't like. In a high power distance country or culture, you don't even talk to your boss's boss. That would be rude no matter what. Like, you wouldn't even give them a compliment. You would give that compliment to your boss, who would then give it to their boss if they chose to. That's high power distance. That's normal in most of the cultures where we have a high density of production now. That's normal across China. It's normal across Vietnam. It's normal across India. It's normal across Japan. In a way, it's normal in Mexico. Depending on what type of good we're talking about, its majority production center, that's normal. So you have this high power distance culture, which is, you do not say to your boss or your boss's boss, I think we're doing it wrong. I think we have a misguided approach. You would be eliminated immediately or ostracized, which could be even worse. And so you have these cultures where innovation is difficult, where breakthrough conversations are uncomfortable and unwanted. And then you have reasoning by analogy. Now, the cultures around the world where people have been conditioned, mostly through school, that it's fine to talk to people regardless of position. Those are largely the Scandinavian cultures, and also Denmark too, and the Netherlands, but especially Finland, Sweden, Norway. All through school, people are told, question the directions, speak to each other frankly and honestly, don't build up to the important information, say it immediately. This is trained in school in many of these areas, many of these cultures. Well, these are these very interesting design centers. Unfortunately, most of those areas have an extremely small production capability, whether it's from being mineral poor or whatever the reason. The production density and production amount in these areas is very small. So you end up having consultants from these areas. Well, if the consultant walks into Vietnam with high power distance from Finland or whatever they're from, and they say, I think you're doing it wrong, which has happened before, they're simply not invited back, because the person who invited the consultant in now lost faith because the consultant just told their boss, you're not perfect. And in fact, maybe we even have a fundamentally misguided approach. So these problems, I'll say, they have advantages too. But these problems of power distance in high production areas, not being compatible with innovation, and then reasoning by analogy, makes it nearly impossible for this approach to come anywhere except Tesla, which is a software first company starting with the California culture. They're highly global now, and embracing Shanghai's software culture, not manufacturing culture, coming from Shanghai's software culture. They've taken the radical candor and radical innovation cultures and manufacturized them, which at least according to Lars and Franz, is a world's first of any large production company. And in my experience, I think that's true.
Very interesting, the culture part, and that has reminded me of the book Culture Map from Erin Meyer that I recommend anyone who's watching, that she explains like how different, especially in companies, are the relationships of communications, of saying things that you don't like, and it's really interesting. But I had like one other question about this unboxed process, and is, as far as we know, the first Gigafactory that is going to be using this process is Giga Mexico. And how do you think, because in our last interview, you explained how in Giga Austin they had cells instead of an assembly line, that I understand that it was something in the middle from the traditional assembly line to what this unboxed process is. So how do you think this unboxed process is going to affect the layout of this Giga Mexico?
Well, Giga Texas was built for the unboxed process. Architecturally. And in fact, that's all that is being is installed in Giga Texas and being operationalized in Giga Texas. So when as Giga Texas continues to ramp, that's a really big deal, because Giga Texas is ramping this fundamentally amazing new process. The advantage of Giga Mexico that no other facility has had is what's learned in Giga Texas. Giga Texas was designed in order to do unbox process and figure out what the ramp needs to be. Well, now it's already in volume. Thousands and thousands and thousands of cars are coming out of unbox process from Giga Austin. And those same people that built Giga Austin, that worked on the expansion of Giga Shanghai, and that are now working in Giga Austin and Giga Brandenburg, they're going to Mexico with everything they've learned. So it's not that it'll be the first time Unboxed is done. It'll be the first time a factory has been built with people experienced in making thousands of units using the Unboxed process. Giga Austin already is three-dimensional, which is, I've never seen three-dimensional manufacturing outside Tesla. I've seen some pretty interesting manufacturing in Sweden, where actually in very small volume, Saab Aeronautics, Saab Defense, makes jets, military jets. The Gripen, what are they on now? The Gripen M, make these jets in 3-week iterations.
Does it have anything to do with Saab-Scania, the car company?
Not anymore. Not anymore. Okay. Now that said, Saab-Scania has some pretty interesting thinking in it too. But it's not yet in scale, in production scale. But yes, and also there's a company not too far away called Einride, which is an automated trucking company. And again, very interesting ideas, but the manufacturing process is still entirely traditional, unfortunately, meaning slow. So the versions change every few years. So you have these three-dimensional cells, and Saab Aerospace, not related to the car company anymore. They've been sold off, separate owners. Saab Aeronautics has cells, but they're 2D. They're fanned out across the manufacturing floor, and they are responsible for innovation and production. So that's pretty awesome. Well, Tesla does that in 3D, which is amazing. What we're likely going to see in Mexico is the child knowledge of that process, which I will assume will be even less posts, even less floors. Like as opposed to saying it's on the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth floor, it will likely be simply the parts are going up a meter. And to achieve even higher density, there will likely be fewer floors and more like free floating, like crane driven, post winching robots. I want to say post crawling, but I don't mean like with legs. That'd be inefficient. They're basically cranes just alongside posts. You will likely see more of that for highly optimized factory volume. And likely we'll see more remote manufacturing. Now, I have a guess about Tesla's design center opening in California. I was really surprised by that. Tesla, also Neuralink, also SpaceX says we want design at the point of manufacturing in the same room. And Tesla opened a separate design center, a separate building from production. I was really surprised.
You mean the engineering HQ that Elon Musk introduced, like I think a couple or 3 weeks ago? 1 month?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm attempting to refer to. Yes.
In California.
The good news for Giga Mexico, I hope, is that this facility is basically deploying production software for automated production. I don't know how many of our listeners and watchers have a software development background. In software development, ideal case, you have 3 to 5 people in a circle looking at a big screen, or each with their own laptop that's mirroring each other's screen, and they take turns typing so everyone stays fresh. So whoever's typing, they type for 3 or 7, maybe 15 minutes, and the next person types. And everyone else is watching and thinking, what does this have to do with security? Is this really solving the problem? And the person who's typing is just thinking about the immediate tool use. We call that mob. That'd be our ideal case. Well, in manufacturing, that's also what we want. We're typing what the robots do, what the automated robots are doing. And when I was working in Tesla in 2020, that was done within a meter of each other. You wanted to be able to touch the robot or the safety cage around the robot if you were programming it, and you were constantly programming it. You're constantly introducing new parts. What I hope the new engineering HQ in California means is that the confidence in the automated assembly is so high, the engineers don't think they need to be within a meter of the robots anymore. Now, Optimus is coming along, but that software is running on traditional ARM robots too. So even the robots that look more like traditional manufacturing robots are getting extremely advanced at correcting their own mistakes. AI-driven feedback loops, GANs running on the robots, improving their own manufacturing process. When I was there in 2020, you needed to be right there with the robots. Now in 2022, it's possible that at least in some of these cells, design and production cells, engineers can truly upload new concepts, new design concepts from their phone or laptop from a few kilometers away, and trust that the robots will figure it out, that the learning loops will figure it out. I mean, the robots are already not dumb. They're already not just following a pre-programmed path. They're experimenting with things and measuring their own results and improving their own processes, right? They have some AI in the loop, basic AI in the loop. Maybe it's so good now that the engineers can do it from a completely separate building. If that's true, the layout of Giga Mexico could be extremely different in terms of where the humans interact. We might actually see something like a hamster terrarium where you have, transparent walkways snaking through in 3 dimensions where people basically walk laps while developing to have some concept of the production facility. When we're writing software now, we don't have to look at each bit and byte anymore. You actually do every once in a while. You want to go fully deep every once in a while. But much of the time we're typing in English or Spanish or French or German. We're typing in a abstracted human-to-human language and letting the computer figure it out. Well, I wonder if from 2020 to 2023, Tesla has gotten production programming to that level, where these people are essentially speaking in human language and the robots are trustworthy to course correct and figure out the detail. And that's my hope for why there's a separate building for the engineering HQ in California. And if that's true, we might see an extremely updated layout, at least for where the humans interact in Giga Mexico.
Wow, that's I didn't even think and in Giga Mexico, like you that have been working with all the top manufacturing automobile companies in the world. As far as I know, Tesla also decides the location by the talent. So, for example, Shanghai, it was a hub, or China for electric vehicles, and also they have a lot of AI going on. Germany, of course, they have all the engineers, traditional talent there. But what about Mexico? Because I know that there's a hub in the north part of all the maquilladoras, I think, or automotive companies there. But what do you know about this region for the future workers of Tesla Giga Mexico?
First, I'll start with the not as interesting reason to get it done. The not as interesting reason is also these plants are placed on logistics supply lines. You want short logistic routes from shipping, rail, future Cybertruck delivery, or future semi deliveries. And Mexico has an excellent infrastructure for mass semi-transit, semi-tractor trailer transit. And in fact, that's very well used now by many companies. So putting on that ley line, on that magic pathway, that supply line is a really great idea. And it allows Tesla to expand sales, because also the goal is to put production near sales. So that clearly indicates Tesla is intending to ramp deployment in more southern areas than California, for them to be used, not just built there and sent away, right? Which is inspiring. And with products like robotaxi, potentially lower cost models, mass transit type models, manufacturing models. I mean, the Cybertruck is basically a prototype construction tool, right? So all the construction that from northern Mexico south can benefit from, the infrastructure, machinery. That's interesting to think of Tesla's future product line. Okay, so that's one. That's the less interesting reason. Logistics, future sales, because it matches also the future product mix. Then about the talent. The manufacturing knowledge in the areas of Mexico Tesla is courting is world-class. Far and away world-class. And if we do a teardown of first-level products, award-winning products, good design products, highly durable products, consumer review products like Wirecutter says this is truly the most elegant to use and best detail-oriented product. Very often, many of the sub-assemblies, if not the entire product, are made in Mexico. If we use the world's most sold headset, a Plantronics headset, it's made in Mexico, and the internals are. And the manufacturing know-how and in some parts product design know-how is phenomenal, top tier. So what we will likely see is Tesla culture being attempted to be introduced, the idea of low power distance, where someone who is just hired should speak directly, regardless of rank, to anyone. And if they don't, that's considered a problem. And what will be interesting to see is how that culture fits, because the respect for position is really beautiful, but it can be slow. It can create risk, right? So we'll see if the Tesla culture matches. But the skills knowledge that's already there is huge. Likely, we'll also see, in addition to Tesla culture, ramp up of AI skill, because that's inseparable from Tesla. Something I loved about working in Tesla is everyone's a programmer. Everyone's a machine operator. Everyone's a welder. Everyone unloads trucks. Like, everyone does everything. So I assume that's got to continue in Giga Mexico. It's a core competitive advantage. And if that's true, the school system will be funded to create the skills needed. So we'll have code groups, mob development, already the production skill, the manufacturing, engineering is excellent. Likely we'll have even more software skill, and culture setting, I think, will be phenomenal.
About what you're saying in the presentation, Lori Shelby, that she made like one of the last appearances, that she was speaking about impact. She said something interesting, that she said like once Take Charge, that is an app that they had like the Tesla workers to suggest improvements and securities and everything is going up, dangers are going down. While you were in Tesla, this Take Charge, was it online, and how was it like different from other companies?
It was on our phones, and you get it downloaded during your orientation, or at least I did in 2020. Within the first 4 hours you join the company, you get all the Tesla apps, and there's these monitors just above head height everywhere. Like there's nowhere you can stand, as far as I can remember, where you don't see at least one of them, at least one of these monitors. And they're just TVs. They're just big TVs. And they're cycling through, showing you the different apps, displays from the different apps that are also on your phone. For example, these Take Charge apps, and also Lean at Tesla, Agile at Tesla, different programs to increase the speed of change or reduce waste, are cycling through on all the monitors and on your phone. Well, because even if you're not looking at your phone, they're on these monitors, you're reminded constantly that these apps exist, and you're continuously shown the most recent ones that worked. So these 3 people determined that there was a design change that could be made that led to less overhead work, a less chance of shoulder injury. We could use a 1/3 less power on the drills because we changed the fastener type. And these are multiple times a day, compounding. And it makes an exciting feeling. Like when you play a video game, if nothing changes, it is a certain type of game. I mean, I love Stardew Valley, and things change very slowly. I actually love Stardew Valley, but it's a different type of game when things are moving quickly. And the rate of these screens showing something has happened through the Take Charge app, something has happened through Lean at Tesla, something's happened through Agile at Tesla, the rate at which that's being communicated is multiple times a day. So you feel it's a living system. Then also in the bathrooms, there's now maybe there are monitors, but at that time they were printouts. They were just standard size paper printouts in a plastic folder, and they changed, not daily, but often. They'd be reports that anyone thought were interesting. Like, I noticed paint quality is superior in these dimensions. What do people think about the way these layers of paint are bonding at this temperature? Sometimes it's technical, sometimes it's not technical, sometimes it's a mix. And it keeps you engaged. And exactly as was pointed out by Tesla HR, by Agile People Operations, the more engaged people are, the lower the injuries. So you have consistent reminders that people are using these systems and something is happening. That creates interest. And then the fact that there's no barrier to participate, it's right on your phone. You don't even have to log in, because if you're in the Tesla facility, you're logged in, right? So you don't have to go through a sign-in page or anything. You just interact immediately, like you'd want a video game to be. And I think that makes the adoption really high. And I loved seeing the correlation to safety. Congratulations to Tesla HR.
Yeah. And I think that you were the person who coined the term digital self-management, DSM. And I think Take Charge is part of this. You explained it really amazingly. You opened everybody's mind in our first interview, and also in Lars from Best in Tesla, in Dr. Know It All, Farsad. I recommend anyone that doesn't understand this, go to those interviews. But one main part of digital self-management, it means digital self-management, it means with all these apps and artificial intelligence, Tesla workers don't need to wait for a boss to tell them what to do. They have something faster and more intelligent and more rewarding, as you were explaining. And one part is the factory mode. And finally, Tesla was open about speaking about factory mode. So is it okay if now I play the clip of factory mode and you can explain everybody what it is, because it was like really interesting. So hold on, I'm going to, because I remember you made a video about, let me, this one, this one, sharing, let me see. I think that you explained in one video that was really interesting, but do you see it now that this bit button and it's going to start right now?
Now, this Model Y is in pieces, right? It's you can see it coming together. The display is already running. It's testing each of these pieces. So the steering rack collar, the steering rack is being tested earlier. Now the seats are communicating with the airbags inside. Their seat heaters. The steering wheel, are its buttons functioning? Do the steering wheel heater work? How's the stereo system working? The microphone is giving a feedback loop on noise, vibration, harshness. Now here is paint analysis. Yeah, so from this very beginning, see, it's already running. From the moment that screen is attached, the car is testing itself module by module, and the child modules were being tested automatically. It's not like they went to a test room. It's automatic as they're being brought over to be put inside this Model Y here. Now, factory mode we could think of as the software that runs the machine, but including people. So this software is connected to separate software stacks that run on each robot, on many of the posts, like columns holding up the buildings, and the cameras mounted on those columns and the displays attached to those, to see what inbound and outbound logistics are happening in the area, et cetera. And also what the people are doing. What's important is the digital self-management part is not judging the humans. It's not spying on the humans. There's not another human in an office watching all the reports so they know who to promote and who not to promote. It's, I think, very important to the reason why people like to work at Tesla is what it does, it gives you feedback, and only you, well, your group, the like 3 to 5 people, your group gets feedback as to the rate at which the product is improving when you're there. And it lets humans who are interested in doing a good job do a good job faster. Now, autopilot came from factory mode, not the other way around. And we hear Elon and everyone in Tesla now talk about how autonomy is the play to large financial returns from Tesla. It is the fundamental mover for increasing the value of Tesla's products is autonomy, autonomous driving. That is a byproduct of factory mode. That's how important factory mode is. And I'm glad we finally seen it. So if what's more important than the machine is the machine that builds the machine, what's more important than that is the software running on the machine that builds the machine, which is connected to the software in the machine, which is connected to the software in each worker's phone, which is essentially the Optimus prototype, right? We humans are basically the Optimus test rigs, and our phone is the Optimus test control. The idea being not to wait, right? The fundamental value is to have reasonably high quality decisions, at least human level, if not better, in terms of quality of rightness of decision, made instantly, so there's not waiting. Musk is not a fan of ChatGPT now. It's not open. It has political leanings, etc. What is really cool about ChatGPT is if you go to the ChatGPT web URL, you can ask questions like, if you were my manager and this were the situation, what should I do? And ChatGPT gives reasonably high quality answers instantly. That's even less informed. I mean, that's very less informed. You've only said, given this situation, ChatGPT only knows what you've told it. Well, imagine if you're in Tesla and factory mode knows which chips are coming in, which silicon wafers are coming in, what build of software we're on, and its current, and the bug rate as we're introducing new features, the defect rate. It knows how many new features are being introduced over about what length of time, which groups are on shift, depending on what kind of coffee we have. I mean, it has a massive data set that is real time. I mean, none of it's manually entered. It's automatically measured. If the temperature of the factory is this, is that better or worse? Factory mode knows that. And factory mode makes real-time suggestions constantly to everybody through their phones. And digital self-management. So the idea is, why would you ever ask a human to make a certain type of decision? Just continually ask that. Why would you ever ask a human that question? And then you make the answer that's non-human in this case instant. And it's not perfect. It's really good. By 2020, it was really good. Like, I didn't have to ask a human, do I take vacation time or not? And now in 2023, I imagine it's significantly superior. So you have, for those who are using the full self-driving beta, many people report, I'm really impressed with it myself. Many people report how quickly it improves. Remember, that is a byproduct of factory mode. Factory mode is improving even faster to the idea where, I mean, eventually these cars are designing and producing themselves, which we saw a play on that in the video of an Optimus helping produce another Optimus with other Optimuses around it. I mean, that's absolutely the intention, and it's not so far off that now. I mean, there's 65,000 humans inside Tesla, but I think the goal is to actually increase that number. But like a powered suit to let those people work faster and faster and faster and more freely and more freely and more freely towards the mission. The management aspect of that is a particular hobby of mine because I'm asked about that often, and it's a passion topic of mine. It's related to my consulting background before. So I felt I was a master of that domain, and then coming into Tesla and experiencing what Tesla has done to it was particularly exciting. The way prioritization is done in most companies is you have, in most companies around the world, it's basically a family that was previously a wealthy ruling family, like military leader, noble family back in some day. And they're kind of still that. And you have this family, like actually DNA line, genetic line, regardless of skill, they're that family. They're making decisions about product mix and what we do and what we don't do at some large level. We might call them majority investors. We might call them the board above the board, whatever title they're given. In many large manufacturing companies, that's still how it's done. So if you want to introduce another model or make a significant change or basically spend more than 3 million euro, you need to pitch to that family and they need to agree or you don't get to do it. Well, that's fundamentally slow. Also, it doesn't mean they're necessarily the best at judging that decision.
Inefficient, yeah.
So also decision quality might not be the best, but it's also slow. You might wait 3 months before you have your next chance to present to them. Well, in the Musk companies, that's basically like ChatGPT. You don't ask Elon, should I do this? You ask DSM, should I do this? And more often than not, DSM is already suggesting to you, right? But when you have great ideas, which typically most of us did each morning, well, at the start of our shift, because you either enter at about 5 a.m. or about 5 p.m. Whenever you come in, you're typically full of ideas from when you slept. You bombard those into the apps, and you get immediate responses guiding you. Please develop this further, or here's a reason that might not be the best idea. Instead of traditional prioritization decisions. And I've never seen that happen in any other company. I still see humans assigned to make decisions instead of having a certain level of trust awarded to your automated systems for decision making and budget allocation. I also loved the conversation around auto bidder. Now, still, the video talks about auto bidder making dynamic energy trades and having extremely high level of financial efficiency. What was not said, and I would love it to be said, but I will say, is the auto bidder stack is also used for procurement. It's used for any financial decision in Tesla, and at basically instant speeds, essentially instant speeds. So you don't ask a procurement department, am I getting a good price? You ask auto bidder, am I getting a good price? So these decisions are outsourced to AI stacks in DSM. And there's not just one. It's not like one big software package, right? It's many, many, many different stacks. Some of them have apps as an interface. Some of them run as services in a service architecture, an ecosystem of services. And they all can connect to each other. They all have common hooks to each other.
And Joe, the amazing part about the natural language models that you were speaking, that you as a employee, you could be using and it understand, and as you're explaining, it speed everything up. It's like, I think it was David Lau, the part of the software, that he said something like, I have the script here, that he said, let me see, we're taking a similar approach in service through a combination of onboard vehicle diagnostic, natural language processing applied to customer narratives when a customer schedules a service appointment, and a suite of internal developing tools. We were successfully diagnosing, scheduling, and ordering parts for over 33% of customer concerns and services. So they're using it also to automate like different parts as service. So right now it's at 33%, but I guess in a few years' time it will be 100%.
This is also important to business efficiency. Most companies now have realized gradient descent algorithms, or said more beautifully, artificial intelligence has value. What a lot of companies have done is created a separate AI lab and hired the most talented, by their judge, AI developers that they could afford, and put them in this lab and said, okay, do great AI. Tesla doesn't do that at all. They say customers have scratched paint. Right now, it takes 3 days on average and N number of euro to resolve that. Use any tool you can, make that better. So it's not like this beautiful AI lab doing AI stuff. It's like people saying, how do we make customer service appointments faster? How do we fundamentally improve the customer experience? Okay, part of that recipe is we should use some gradient descent programming, probably some some natural language processing. We probably should, right? It's so tactical, it's so applied, and then you have this shared, this internally open system. And actually, Tesla said any competitor can use their stuff if they actually use it towards sustainable energy. So competitors can use Tesla's stack too if they ask. But then if any group has made an improvement to the language processing model, that's then available to everyone. So also in car, when you ask your Tesla to reroute you or heat your seat or anything.
My balls are freezing, no?
Yeah, I'll let you say it. Yeah, but yeah.
You can say
yeah, it's the same natural language processing stacks. It's not redundant. Fundamentally, most businesses view things as separate labs, separate silos, separate groups, because they have a budget assigned and an accountable person. And Tesla's a fundamentally more flat type of organization.
And this that you've spoken about it like at the beginning of this chat. This was said not only by Franz and Lars, but also by many of the executives that they were explaining like different parts, how they said, okay, we work in the same room, design, engineering, software, even building construction. That is something that you've spoken about, that Tesla has their own building construction team that works together with the whole team to build the company, like to build the factories that they match the mission, the product, the culture, the AI, everything. So how different is it? Like, how do traditional companies do their future gigafactories? For example, now in Valencia, they're making one of the 6 gigafactories for batteries of Volkswagen. So how different are traditional companies doing their building construction?
It's still contract driven, right? So a contract says, meet this spec by this date. And typically we have date overruns and cost overruns, but the contract imagines a date and cost. And the design can only get worse from there, right? We can only have overruns. We don't get to allocate innovations. The contract model, and then hands outsourcing by discipline. There's a meme I tweeted a few months ago, but it's continually getting comments on LinkedIn. Sorry, not tweeted. I did tweet it. It's on LinkedIn as well, though. On LinkedIn, it's still a hot topic, getting the discussion and comments. It's a bunch of Spider-Man suit people. They're all pointing at each other, and they're labeled. They're labeled different departments in a company, and they're all pointing at each other. No one's doing any work, and you have to get approval from this group. That's to get approval from this group. That's to get approval from this group. Well, they all have separate contracts, and it's an artifact of the current contract model that most companies use. Maybe vertically integrated gets said so often, people lose how awesome it is. The fact that all these people don't have a separate boss, like it's flat enough that the construction group doesn't have a boss. It's the same people as supporting you, answering questions for you, as software. Construction and software have the same person they report to. Reporting doesn't mean quite the same thing in a Musk company as most of us might think it does. But most companies have a head of this part of construction, like the head of landscaping, and then the head of water control, and then the head of water drainage, and then the head of incoming logistics and trucking daytime, the head of incoming trucking logistics evening. And they have to agree for anything to get done. So by default, systems wait. And in a Musk company, yeah, they're all in one room. At least when they need to make an important decision, they're all in one room. But very often they're all in one room. And these teams, people can come and go anytime, but they tend to choose to stay together. So we learned publicly that the team who grew Giga Shanghai is also the team that did much of the development with Giga Berlin, and is also the team that did much of the development for Giga Texas, and also the team that is now going to Mexico. And people come and go. It's flexible, but it's not like the project ends and those people are reassigned to different things. You have this highly effective group of people that goes from challenge to challenge to challenge, typically choosing similar types of challenges. Again, a fundamentally different business structure.
And also a fundamentally different approach that Tesla has. And I think the only person that I have listened to speak about deeply is suppliers. And I've seen, like, after this investor day, there's so many people speaking about, okay, this sandbox processes, these like financial implications, the new technologies and everything, but I don't see people speaking about suppliers. Can you explain us why what Karn Budirach and let me see, like the other executive was Karn Budirach and I have it. Yes, and Russian Thomas. Why is it so disrupting and so important? I think I have lost you.
Oh, I'm going to try to share something. Let's see if I can
perfect.
Window
yes, sure.
Here.
Because it blew my mind. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it blew my mind when they did this part of the presentation, and I've been amazed. Like later, I haven't heard many people speak about it.
I tried to share the current Tesla supply chain graphic as of Investor Day. Is that visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. The first point I'd like to make is Tesla does have a lot of suppliers. So some people say, well, Tesla can do that because they make all their own stuff. Well, Tesla is highly vertically integrated. They still have a massive supplier base. You can count it right here. You can actually see it. Okay, I'll attempt to go video back on. Stop share. So Tesla does have suppliers. They have thousands of suppliers. So how are they introducing, I mean, how did they drop the cost of the Model 3 30% in 5 years? No other car company on planet Earth has done that. And everyone else has gone up. Everyone else, every single other one has gone up. So with suppliers, how is that possible? Part one is contracts. The contracts to all Tesla suppliers say process improvements are not only possible, they're expected. We expect the parts to be delivered in batches continuously, and we expect them to improve, including even being different, as long as you can explain why that substantial difference is a positive. We will accept the batch. And we would like that to happen as frequently as you're comfortable. I mean, Tesla will start in a contract by saying every 3 months the product should have a significant improvement. Your batches should be significantly improved. They try to get that down to less than a day. And some suppliers improve their deliveries in small batches as often as every 45 minutes. Step one is because that's contractually allowed. Normal contract language all around the world says the supplier needs to notify the manufacturing, the brand company of any change 7 months before the intended date of the introduction of that change. I mean, the suppliers are told you're not allowed to change. Like, if you have to, because you had a supply chain shortage and you had to substitute a process or a chip or a type of material, you need to let us know at least 7 months before you intend to start that change. So it's easier for suppliers to stop production than to make a change. The first time I was confronted with this, I was in Stuttgart. I was with Bosch, and I was with the CEO of Bosch. At that time, it was Volkmar Denner. And at that time, they had about 100,000 employees. And Bosch was making more than half of the current BMW cars and current Mercedes-Benz cars. So calling it a Mercedes-Benz car or a BMW car was a little strange, because more than half of both those cars by weight were Bosch parts, engineered in Bosch. So that it's really the Bosch 3 Series, the Bosch 7 Series, the Bosch iDrive, etc. And I was with the CEO of the company in Stuttgart, and we were what's called the Bosch building. It's a beautiful building. And Volkmar introduced me to the Agile coach for the Bosch steering rack team. And I have a picture of me with him, and we're holding a Tesla Model S steering rack. And what they were telling me is Bosch designs and manufactures and delivers a new batch of steering racks for the Model S. And this is years ago. This was like, I should get the exact date, probably 2016, probably. Maybe earlier. My book has the
Joe,
correct
the
date.
steering rack is the steering wheel, or what is the steering rack?
The
like the dashboard
piece that connects to we call them the knuckles or the spindles, but connects inside the wheels and pulls them each direction to turn.
Okay.
So you have a steering wheel and a steering column and a steering rack.
A steering rack.
The steering rack moves.
Perfect.
And for the Model S,
thank you.
And all Teslas, of course, the steering rack needs to be fully software controllable, right? Software needs to be able to steer it at any speed, not just low speeds, but even at high speed, even emergency maneuvers. And it still needs to feel good and et cetera, all these things, and be highly durable, highly safe. It needs to deform and collapse correctly under impact, et cetera. We're holding this steering rack, and they're telling me they design, build, and deliver a new steering rack for Tesla, for the Model S, every 1 week. They said we're on 1 week cycles. And meanwhile, BMW and Mercedes were saying, don't change. Not only BMW and Mercedes, every other car company on earth was saying, don't change for at least 7 months. Wow. Really, we want the exact same parts, same plastics. We want the same mil spec. So it's a sheet from a piece of paper. They actually wanted paper. these other companies, from the metal producing facility, the metal mill that melts the metal, casts slabs, then machines, hopefully anneals the metal, depending on what they're doing with it. They produce specification sheets. They want all the metal ordered at once for 2.5 years of production. So they have the same spec sheet, the same one. So it's the same kind of metal, the same batch, essentially, the same sequence of batches from the same set of metal mills. And these suppliers then use that same supply until it's used up. And then they would go through recompliance. Is the metal similar? Well, the Musk companies were saying, look, we're going to test every single steering rack. So don't worry about it. It doesn't matter what metal you use or don't use. You can switch it for another material. If it passes all tests, we know it's good because we have great automated tests and we're sharing them with you. And Bosch said, that's great. Now, this wasn't scary for Bosch either. They've been working in Formula One for decades. And in Formula One, you make changes multiple times an hour, at least in the test facilities, and then deploy the latest and greatest by the time the vehicles are packaged up to fly out to the next race. So there might be a lag time between latest and greatest and the car that's on track, but they filled the airplane with the latest and greatest at the time the plane was loaded. And that's normal for an F1 team. They said we simply ran it the same way we ran Bosch Formula One. And it worked. We call it Agile now. And they'd created this facility called Bosch Universe to train other groups in Bosch. Because what they found is most of the other 390, 100,000 employees weren't used to working like a Formula One team and were not able to accept a contract for Tesla. So they created a training center, a production and training center called Universe, which I later got to visit, and it was phenomenal, along with my good friend Ricardo Merti. They were able to deliver in less than 1 week steering racks, brake master cylinders. So when your foot presses the brake pedal, that then pushes a hydraulic reservoir, which is also computer controlled in a Tesla. Now it's much more computer controlled, but previously that system, the brake master cylinder was a Bosch part, the steering rack was a Bosch part, the brake pedal was a Bosch part. They made all of those things and they would continuously improve them, reduce the weight, reduce the manufacturing time, increase the responsiveness, increase the safety, increase the level of software control, the speed of software control, the fidelity of software control, et cetera, et cetera. And when you see these supplier numbers, like we just showed moments ago, 21,000 parts by suppliers for the Model S and X, those are the contracts governing them. And they can even engage with traditional large volume suppliers like Bosch, but they engage with their Formula One group. and then they leave it to that company to figure out how to bring the rest of the company up to these faster iteration cycles.
And Joe, that's mind-blowing, and thank you very much for sharing this example of Bosch. One other part of the suppliers that I found it interesting, but as I don't know, I wanted to ask you, how does it compare to the traditional companies, is when Karn Budirach, he explained how Tesla has an engineering supplier team that once they want something from a supplier, they don't say, okay, give me this off-the-shelf component. They design it and they bring their team inside the supplier until the line is done. And he said, like, for weeks, months, and until it's done, and then later we automate. So what was your experience about this part of Tesla's supplier team, and how different is it from other companies?
In early Tesla didn't have nearly as much money. And in 2018, Tesla had massive operations compared to a startup, but they still were almost out of money. So there's been times even recently where Tesla had very little money. In those times, Tesla says what's on the shelf, what's available right now, and they create excellent automated tests for it. So they understand exactly the yield rate, the number of units, every unit that meets their need. And they know it almost instantly. These tests are very fast running. Tesla is phenomenal at automated testing. So in times where Tesla did not have as much money, it was exactly take off-the-shelf parts, pre-existing parts, and create automated tests to say what boundaries, what limits can we push this specific one. That's where you got the idea. Motors were made in-house, but for example, the idea between a performance Model 3 motor and a Model 3 motor non-performance, they're the same physical motors. It's the motors that were tested to have an incredibly high amount of output are sorted to be performance Model 3 motors. And motors that were tested to have not as amazing high level of output are software flagged to be non-performance motors, but they're the same physical motors, right? They're tested to an incredible level of detail so they can be sorted for the radical performance density that is a performance Model 3, for example. Okay, well, Tesla does this for everything. So can this supplier chip, this silicon wafer, can it handle this level of work that we're going to put to it? So that's low budget times. In normal now budget times, where Tesla is a radical innovation company and Tesla's profit margin for vehicles are huge. Well, profit for Tesla means R&D, means even more R&D. So the R&D return per vehicle is massive. So they have a huge amount of money for product development, actually more than any other car company on planet Earth. So what they do with those funds is, as Musk said previously, imagine the ideal arrangement of atoms of what you want, and then design the production machines, facilities, processes to put atoms in that ideal position. Now, when Tesla does not have a lot of money, it's phenomenal automated testing of off-the-shelf product. When Tesla has enough money, which right now they do, it's what's the ideal arrangement of atoms. I mean, truly first principles. So Tesla's already starting to design constantly, it never ends. Then which suppliers have expertise in the types of processes we are imagining can help us put atoms in that design, like Hydra for Gigapress. Then the Tesla team treats that company's facility, if they'll let them, like it's just another Tesla building. They just go in and work with people in the same room like they do anywhere. I mean, it's not like a separate supplier process. What's being described about working with a supplier is essentially the same as happens in Tesla all the time. But they're doing it at the point of production. In this case, it's production of the machine that builds the machine. So they're going to the supplier's production spot and working exactly as they would if they were in Tesla. So they bring software development, they bring manufacturing automation, they bring ergonomics design. If needed, they bring contracting, and they work together. It's not meetings, right? They're not talking. they're building things. That's another, I think, common misconception is there aren't really meetings, right? There's work time, which I guess we would call it a work meeting, but it's laptops open, it's adjusting CAD, it's checking shims in machines, right? It's there aren't conference tables.
You're not PowerPoints, right?
Never. Now, something I am concerned about is with Investor Day, we're seeing even more slides, 169 slides. I did not see any slides when I was an employee. I did not see any PowerPoint. I did not see any presentations. And there were some presentations previously, typically alongside a product debut, right? Well, we're getting more slides now, and I am scared. Tesla, looking on the outside, is only producing innovation faster. So far, it's working, but I'm worried. It looks like we're at the point now where we have people introducing themselves as heads of things, and they have presentations to explain what they're trying to explain to groups of hundreds or thousands of people. That runs a risk of getting slow. In fact, for everybody else, that's slow. I'm hoping Tesla doesn't suffer that fate. I'm worried about that. We're at 169 slides now. Those are slides. That is a presentation now. So I'm worried.
Yeah, so please, Elon Musk, that he will watch this interview. forbid all slides in all your companies, not only in Tesla. And apart from that, there's one other thing that Karn, he said that the supplier, not only he receives the all these Tesla engineering team to set up the lines, but also they put dashboards. So when they have some problems, they absolutely knew, like when there was this pandemic, they absolutely knew how everything was going. So they had so much information. So I guess this digital self-management, as you've said, like there's no difference between supplier and Tesla company. It goes also through the supplier chain.
Tesla, Musk has a global view where the difference between someone that's in the company and outside the company is fluid. It's not black and white. And Musk really stresses that with the patent releases of all our patents are belong to you. And then Musk recently again saying anyone can use our technology if they're using it towards the mission. And then Investor Day, the definition of investor being all life, all civilization. Those are invested in the future of civilization. And for the first time, well, the second time, Musk said, here's the role other companies get to play in what we're doing. And was very embracing. Musk saying, we want to get to 20 million vehicles production. Here's the total vehicle portfolio. So this is up to other companies. Tesla will keep growing if they have to, if no one else does it. But please, other companies, here's the role you need to play. Hydrogen, heat, extreme heat delivery, etc. Here's the roles you need to play. Well, Musk does this right now. All the Tesla employees, all the SpaceX employees, all the Neuralink employees do this right now. Exactly as you said, DSM is deployed as broadly as people will let them. This game-changing phenomenal DNA of manage yourself quickly, don't wait. Here's the technology stack that makes that responsible. That's being distributed as broadly and rapidly as practical. There's the only distinctions between being a Musk company employee and not is the absolute minimum legal requirement. Something I wished the Musk companies would do for a long time is proactively create APIs to interact with Tesla products and sell their battery packs, sell their powertrains, be a supplier. But Tesla is near limited on those quantities. On the most interesting Tesla products, they're right at the production limit. They are the production bottleneck. They can't. But twice now, Musk has said, other companies, you have a role to play. The first was in tunneling. For years, Elon said, companies, please get into tunneling. Please get into boring. And the state of the art did not change at all. The investment did not happen at all. So Musk did enter, but he did first invite others. He said, other people take on tunneling. This is going to be important. Well, now Musk has laid out, all the employees, I don't mean to give Elon all the credit, all the employees have laid out, here's how everyone gets to participate. Now that is supported by making DSM available to those who use it towards the mission. And it is aggressively rolled out everywhere, no matter what color your badge is or who plays your payroll. And it is the fundamental disruptor for the way the company runs itself. It's the management. People either accuse Musk of being the most horrible person ever or say Musk is the most successful business person ever in the history of business. And I don't know, at least the second one's true because we can measure that one. And it's not Elon. Elon built this system with tremendous effort, foresight, sweat, pain. But the system is what's running. And it is being aggressively pushed into suppliers. It starts with monitors and then also the phone apps. But as people become more and more accustomed, there is actually a print mode for factory mode where it prints out paper reports that you can post. So for some facilities, that's where they can start, right? So it's very approachable in levels. There's a print mode, there's a monitor mode, there's a mobile app mode. at some point, Optimus is probably going to walk up and just explain to you and walk you through what needs to happen. But right now, it's phones and monitors on the wall.
And the last point about supply chain that I wanted to ask you is like when Drew Baglino, he spoke about, you've said about Elon Musk, he's speaking about boring company, like please companies do boring. And also Elon has been said in earning calls, please mine and do it efficiently and refine as well. So Drew, he said, okay, we've done the Corpus Christi refinery, not so much because we need this refinery, but because we want to show our supplier that there's a better way of doing it, like faster, more efficient, more cost-effective, more environmentally friendly. And it was really mind-blowing. Like they shared their knowledge with their suppliers. Also, in the 4680 after Battery Day, they said that they would share the 4680 at least form factor with their supplier. So what is your point, and can you give us some other examples about this?
Well, if we look at Tesla's relationship with Panasonic on batteries as a useful example, and then what happened with boring and tunneling as an example, most companies aren't interested in this fast pace of innovation. And what that means is the Musk companies then radically grow because they have to fill the void. Corpus Christi being a demonstrator shows the sharing mindset that's being attempted here. I expect companies won't improve at Tesla speed, just as companies didn't enter into boring and tunneling and actually still haven't. And just as Panasonic's rate of energy density climb has not kept pace with Tesla's. Despite being an old hand in the battery business, with tremendous amounts of know-how, the desire to innovate and the capability to innovate is demonstrably not happening. So the goodwill that I hope people will use to ultimately judge the Musk companies is that they're attempting to say, people, please take these innovations. But our track record shows it's probably only going to result in the Musk companies phenomenally growing again due to a need. Now, I'd be happy if that wasn't true. Musk speaking at the Council for World Government, a similar name, saying there's benefit in having multiple governments, as one system rises, another system may fall. So as the system falls, another may rise. So there's benefit in diversity. Yeah. Well, having more companies take up this mantle and this desire for radical innovation is probably a good thing. But the recent history says it's not happening. So I assume Tesla mining is going to become a massive operation shortly in order to continue fueling 20 million car a year production rate.
Joe, all that we have been speaking about, like how Tesla is organized, is focused on making like the best products at the best price. And we've started with the unboxed process. I wanted to ask you, like, this Gen 3 platform that they spoke about the technology, but they didn't show us how it would be. They gave some hints. Like, how do you imagine like one of these products to be like physically and functionally? How do you imagine like the first Gen 3 product?
The modularity is the result of the unbox process, and that is what we know. So what I want to imagine is more than 8 points of simultaneous evolution. Now, what the Musk companies have figured out is how to have a highly modularized product that doesn't look like a stack of boxes. Even Cybertruck, as radically hard-edged as it is not a stack of boxes. It's not a curvilinear gummy bear type of product like the Model 3 and Y and S and X are. But it doesn't look like a series of plastic building blocks. So what I'm excited by is likely we'll have an amazing aesthetic. It won't be limited by the fact that it's a modular product. I would assume the track record has shown that. When we tear one down, or for any fly-through during production videos we see, and when we post analyses of production fly-throughs, what I imagine we'll see is far more work cells, fully independent work cells. And when we see Giga Mexico, we'll probably see even more dimensionality, as we got to talk about a little earlier. So likely, the vehicle will be divided geographically, I guess I can say. Like you have the front, rear, right side, left side, top, bottom, interior package, likely. But then the sub-modules are things like heat pump. Heat pump is a sub-module. It's a functional sub-module. So you have functional splits along with geographical splits. The functional splits are likely going to be even more. Like we saw in semi, that's 4 Tesla Model S motors, right? So they're used in parallel, as opposed to one great big semi motor, right? They reuse. What I wonder is if we won't see like highly scaled up Optimus actuator motors and 16 of them spinning around, or at least 4-wheel independent power of very high power motors, but much more cost efficient, as we already saw. We already saw they're far more cost efficient. And I wonder if those won't be the same as, for example, Optimus's hip or something, just with a very different gearing. So the level of modularity by geography and the level of modularity by function will likely increase to push this unbox process to its natural beneficial limit. Apart from that, I really am excited and don't know. What I wish we would see are minibuses, like taxis, minibuses type thing. I love the idea of a delivery van or van life or A-team van. I adore that concept. But I don't know the product decision. From the drape shapes, it looks like you have a delivery van shape, and then you have a economical, traditionally ideated small SUV, smaller than Model Y, much lower cost than Model Y, but actually probably almost the same size. It looks like, looking at the drapes. However, I don't know. What we do know is the unbox process is going to be pushed to its current limit, and they'll be pushed again in the future. And that means these cars will be even easier to service because they pop apart like plastic building blocks. And also, as some companies like Cyberlander that I'm affiliated with, or Unplugged Performance, which I have a good relationship with, likely the ability to customize, modify, and an evolving aftermarket for Tesla products will likely increase as well, because that's the natural benefit of modularity, is once people understand the interface, they can attach different things to the interface, like the Cyberlander armored camping shell into the Cybertruck, or Unplugged Performance racing products onto all of Tesla's products, off-road and on-road racing products.
And this future super great cyber van that you were thinking about, they talk about deeply like the future drivetrain and also the future low voltage architecture of all the things that they've spoken. Like, for example, in the motors, they didn't speak, but they showed hairpin motors. They spoke that it won't have rare earth metals, that it will reduce 75% silicon carbide, that the whole drive unit, it will cost $1,000. And then in the low voltage architecture, the 48 volt low voltage architecture, all the controllers will be designed by Tesla. Also that especially the Cybertruck and also the Gen 3, it will have a local Ethernet connected controllers. Like, what is for you that you are car guy and you have your own car company and you work with many car companies, which is like the breakthrough that for you is most important, or the most important, or we can speak about each one of them as you wish.
You're so exciting to collaborate with in a conversation like this, Alejandro. There's a picture of a simulation of motor development. I'm flipping towards it right now, but maybe you'll beat me to it. I may have just gotten there. Here, I'll attempt to screen share, which I think is going to turn off my video, but I think you'll see the image. Powerful in-house software.
Yes, we see it.
This is what I'm so excited about. When a company says they've eliminated rare earth materials, that's a phenomenal achievement. What's even more exciting is the system that allows that innovation to happen repeatably at a faster and faster speed. And we're looking at it. Powerful in-house software. The design process is assisted. That's the new buzzword for you have an AI bot in your design team that's basically answering rudimentary questions so you can think faster, but also proposing some interesting original thought, depending on the programming it's running. So you have assisted engineering in groups, and then you automate that. You create a software package to already have answered your most commonly asked questions, already address your most common failure points. You've systematized innovation. And what's tragic here is that Tesla had to make it in-house. With all the FEA and CFD companies, finite analysis and computational fluid dynamics companies, producing all kinds of visualizations and some levels of solvers, they still didn't do what you need to do to reduce rare earth count in electric motor. With all the know-how and thousands of employees and millions of euro investment, in some cases hundreds of millions, Tesla still had to do it. So it's quite tragic. But then the exciting part is they did. So if this way of cross-functional work with this software has allowed the company to get to zero rare earths with a higher energy density and lower cost of production, what are they going to do in 3 hours or 3 weeks or 3 years? That gets me so bizarrely excited. I mean, the Roadster can fly. It's short hops, right? Short hops is the idea. As someone who loves transport and the feeling of freedom and mobility, the future is now, and it looks amazing. So it's this systematized innovation from the in-house software.
Now I think you're back, and the 48, like the low voltage architecture, the 48 volt architecture, they said, Peter Bannon, he said, and with his colleague, that it will reduce 4 times the current leads and 16 times reduction in lost power. And how important is like this new system?
It's more that the previous system was so hopelessly outdated. The current system is, honestly, I don't think. How do I say it?
They showed that it was from 1960. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. The previous system, it was just so antiquated. Like most of us are used to the idea of an LED light bulb that we could screw into a light fixture, maybe in our home or our office, and then we could say 80% increase in efficiency, but it's a known quantity, right? Like it was overdue, I'd say. Now Tesla is attempting to push an industry standard, and I think they will succeed. Which is very exciting. That's the first time anyone succeeded in a new standard in body electronics, voltage architecture since 1960. So that's a massive achievement. But what I hope is going to happen is far more dramatic as a result. Most tractor trailers and semis are still braking with compressed air sent back from the cab. I mean, it's a high loss, nearly zero feedback system. It's incredibly risky is the nicest word I could say about that. That's like a 12-volt architecture, which companies are still putting in their new products. It's truly ridiculous. But I'd say that one is not groundbreaking. It's merely contemporary. It's like saying it's all LED bulbs in your new office. Like, well, of course. It just strangely, all the other offices are still using incandescent or like gas lamps. Like it's that level. Much more exciting is all body electronics being made in-house to support that architecture. And again, Tesla has a lot of suppliers. It's not that Tesla doesn't like suppliers. It's that they have to because it's a new standard. Their suppliers aren't ready or nimble enough yet, most of them, to start making 48-volt body electronics. So Tesla had to. What that will mean, though, is when Tesla creates silicon, it's typically far and away higher compute than anyone thought was necessary for that purpose, and Tesla ends up fully utilizing it. So what I think will be very exciting is to see what the massive amount of redundant compute in the body of the vehicle will ultimately be used to do.
But when you're speaking about the massive redundancy, you mean like Tesla, by designing all these controllers, will be able to remove these redundancies, or that they will add redundancies for safety and security? I didn't get that part. Sorry.
Oh, sure. Well, Tesla has not moved to having hardware 4 be the only compute in the car. Now, that is one strategy. You can have centralized compute, and hardware 4 is more than powerful enough. And then you have pin-ins and pin-outs and no other electronics. You basically just have on-off control to everything else, like direct power distribution. That is one strategy, centralized compute, which is non-redundant. Well, hardware 4 actually is redundant internally, as was 3 and 2 and 1. But anyway, there's redundancy inside the unit, but you have a single monolithic box with your redundancy inside. Tesla has continued to have multiple points of compute, multiple body electronics modules. That's what I mean by redundant. Yes, you can use less copper that way because you have shorter power runs. You have just data only runs to that power distribution module. But also you have massive compute there in typical Tesla fashion. And what I mean by redundant is you've got one near the right headlight cluster. You've got one near the left headlight cluster, one near each of the tail light clusters, and across the middle. You have them near the airbag systems. The fact that you have a lot of compute in more than one spot in the car, I think will be interesting in a way that I don't have a great guess yet. The excess power in hardware 2 was used to participate in auto labeling. And the excess power in hardware 3 was used to participate in GANs, in running simulations against the solver to faster educate, even for driving scenarios that had never happened, right? To extrapolate on board, like you're driving by, your cameras see a difficult driving situation, that excess compute creates additional scenarios that are similar based on that seed. And then the most interesting ones it does upload back to Tesla headquarters. Well, with many points of distributed compute now, right on the camera systems, right by the airbag systems, I'm excited to see what type of learning will occur. That's what I mean by redundant, that there's more than one spot. It's not one central spot of compute.
Now I understand. And this brings to my mind when they explain that these own like design controllers, they allow Tesla to do over-the-air updates, not only to the infotainment like other companies do, but to many things of the performance, drivetrain, seat belts, airbags of the Teslas, and also that all these controllers, they use Tesla software, and they get so much information out of the cars, and all this information allows them to improve much better. So I guess like with Gen 3, bringing that to the extreme, to the 100%, this will be much bigger.
I imagine we'll have the possibility, as you're saying. For example, one of these compute modules is near the front right headlight cluster. What it may be able to do is detect vibration at a level that allows the cars to become phenomenally quiet while being lighter. And then likely a loose fastener, loosened over time, or corrosion might be able to be detected sonically or by electric impedance because of the level of compute available. Very similar to how human skin communicates when it's damaged or dry or just right. The car very likely can have that level of feedback. Already Tesla scheduled their own repairs. My 2018 Model 3 that I had before scheduled its own charge port upgrade because it knew that I had one of the very first Model 3s, and I had gone on many long road trips and supercharged an enormous amount. And it said there's a chance that with my early connector, the car diagnosed itself that it might be starting to get loose. So it scheduled its own service without me ever being inconvenienced or even aware. That level of information across the car is one of the benefits of having local compute. So we may have things like the car know when mud is built up, or even brake dust is built up, even aesthetic concerns. The cars might even be able to keep themselves more beautiful, more like how human skin does. When I was working in paint, we got to play with that type of learning and feedback a lot, and that's one of the systems I did have a chance to talk about with you, is the beauty algorithm, how beauty is computed as cars pass through the bamboo line and the rows of LED line lights. Well, potentially the cars could do that themselves on the road as other headlights pass them. They can assess themselves. As something as uncore technology as that, maybe the cars are able to be dramatically more beautiful than any other car on the road as a result of their software stack. The in-house software is so unlike anything I've experienced anywhere. And the rate at which it improves, we're seeing, the example I brought up was the powertrain design. And we've seen the cost drop out of powertrain. But now with distributed compute across the body of the car, I get quite excited about what that might mean.
And these cars, they will be even more beautiful when they will have next to them Optimus. And I was really excited of the presentation to see just in 5 months the advancements that this humanoid robot has been able to do. Okay, we don't know how game this presentation is, how much like AI does it have, or how much it was controlled. But what was your opinion on this clip that they showed of Optimus?
Phenomenal advancement. I mean, yeah, they clearly staged the lighting. I like how they made it aesthetically interesting. You know, who has that dim lighting on your workshop and purple backlighting? But the idea is those parts are real parts, and the movements they're doing are actual real movements. And you can see the modularity and the actuator improvements. But what you said is what's most exciting to me, the rate of improvement. And then seeing multiple Optimuses in one scene together, mimicking a family. I mean, really the creative genius is very high. The design goal of Optimus was always to be able to use human level tools like a drill driver. A drill driver is goal one. And seeing that that is the demo. When you use a drill driver, it's easier to notice with a hand tool, but later when you're skillful, a drill driver, you know when to stop driving the drill driver. You can set the torque, right? But you also can feel if you accidentally cross thread, if you misalign the nut on the bolt or whatever you're driving, you can feel by a movement and hear if you've made a mistake. What's being shown there is Optimus is learning that. And likely by now already has that down, that actually fairly advanced skill up. Something I did is every Thursday I would invite strangers to build cars with me. And I ended up doing that with more than 4,000 people. Some executives from Boeing, some street kids without homes. I mean, the whole range. And whether they were an executive at Boeing or a street kid, a common problem was cross-threading nuts on bolts, because if it's the first, second, or 10th time you've tightened a bolt down, you wouldn't know, and you'd just keep twisting it. And it would happen every Thursday night. Somebody would cross-thread some bolts, and then we'd learn how to re-thread bolts. That skill, once they learned it, though, was very empowering. And you can do it with your eyes shut, even around a corner. And if you're really good, you can even do it with gloves on when it's cold. These are what we would consider craft skills. And we can see Optimus practicing one of them right there. That's impossibly exciting when it comes to the capabilities of these products. And the fact that they're intended to be vended, they're intended to be sold. Tesla is much more than a car company.
And I remember, I think that it was on our last conversation that you said, like, Optimus, once it will become useful, it will be the Agilist dream tool, because it will be able to be tagging and making information or data from a human perspective, because now we're getting from robots, but most of the the labor is made from the people. But once the Optimus is running, it will be gathering data, so they will be able to train it and make an exponential growth, right? Something like this. I don't remember.
That's exactly the goal of Optimus. From a data collection standpoint, is its human form factor, because the factory has never had human perspective data collection before, other than through people's phones, which is very clumsy and low bandwidth, as the Neuralink presentations have made very clear. So Optimus going through different work environments, more than one at a time now, collecting data from a human perspective, is actually a very kind thing to do. Right, the original idea of the alien dreadnought was not clearly, the production system was not clearly said to be human compatible. It was intentionally used scary language, the alien dreadnought, right? Optimus using a human form factor is extremely kind. It means humans can continue to participate in the labor workforce if they want to. And now we have the data to make that awesome. Yeah, when we have injury rates dropping as a result of people opting in information, engaging through their apps. Well, when a team of 3 or 5 Optimuses works a work session for even 15 minutes, the data set back is so high fidelity that I would expect injury potential to go to 0 that day in that work position. And that's just injury. Level of fun, engagement, creativity, and opportunity for innovation will likely also go up because of the data collection from the human perspective and the human form factor.
Yeah, well, it's going to be amazing. Like the following years, most of my videos, like in the Spanish part, I end up saying, you live in the best moment of history, enjoy it. And especially in all the mass companies is so true. And I wanted to ask you also, like, what is your take on the great share screen? Hold on the great Cybertruck, because we could see, like in this video from Tesla Daily, that the beta prototype, like there's a video showing it much better. So what did you think, and how excited are you about it?
I mean, there's no other company that has the production capability to make at volume that shape. So there's a moat based on production capability, which is the kind of moat you want. Whether people like the design or not, no one else has the ability to make that design right now, anywhere, in volume. A mock-up shop could, and we see people all over the world make one, right, out of cardboard or whatever.
In Russia, everywhere.
but actually, as a volume product at a profit margin, no one else has that process. What's amazing, what's frustrating is how the inside of the bed now looks a lot more like a traditional truck. When we get all the way around to look back into the bed, it's the visible surfaces. Now, I assume there's some innovation underneath, but the visible surfaces from inside of the bed appear uninnovative. In fact, it's even more curvilinear than previous. You can see it's a little less polygonal than before. It's got flare outs. It's not quite as wide as previous. I wish the inside of the bed were a little more awesome. Our work at Cyberlander is going to be harder to mate with the polygon cutouts. I wish the inside of the bed were a little bit more awesome. But definitely a product that was built from
this camera
production capability. Yeah.
Sorry, Joe,
down at the bottom
here. Like, what is the reason? Like, is it because they removed the ultrasonic sounds and they're going to use it, or is it because when you are off-roading, it's useful to see like the terrain? Like, what do you think is like the main purpose?
The car's so high that you need to make the hood in front of you appear invisible for child safety, low item, to avoid running over low items. We had a similar situation working with freight locomotives when I was working with the Agile group at Bosch, and had to introduce similar cameras there. When you have a vehicle that can ride up at that height, we need to have the invisible hood view. Now that also helps in off-roading, right? It lets you know exactly where the wheels are and what they're on, right? But the primary is making sure kids are safe.
Safety. Okay.
Safety is number one, right?
Yeah. I didn't know. And speaking about like current products or nearly current products, as we spoke, I think our last interview, as I told you, it was, I think, May last year. May last year was, I think, 1 month or a couple of months before an important event in your life. I think, okay, you got married in July, but maybe as important as that, in June last month, what did you receive?
June last year?
Yes.
My Plaid, my Model S Plaid.
Was it more or less, no? So how has been after, I don't know, 10 months of using your Plaid, or 9 months, how has been the experience?
Well, I got a made in Shanghai Model Y 2 days ago. Here,
oh yes,
I'm in Japan
I
at the
saw
moment.
Like to tear it down with Sandy Monroe, right?
That's the intention. Now, I've been driving it around on to get to know the vehicle before the teardown, because the facility for the teardown we're trying to build an office with a teardown center inside in Tokyo, and the soonest that'll be open is February. The speed of I'm using a traditional construction company, and the speed of their waterfall plan is what it is. So the teardown is likely not going to be till February at the earliest, probably, unless we use a different facility. So there's two vehicles that we can maybe compare and talk about. There's the Shanghai-made Model Y, and then the Model S Plaid, and then before that, one of the very first Model 3s. The Model Y performance gets a little bit faster all the time, even though the production specs aren't updated. And here in Japan, it's very similar to any of the supercars you might encounter, or the older generation. The Skyline R34s are all around, the Supras, or the rally fighters, your WRC clones, the Subaru STIs, and even the heavily modified ones, and the Mitsubishi Lancers. The Model Y is similar or quicker than all of those. It's monstrously quick. It is bizarrely, mind-bendingly quick, and it's boring compared to the Plaid. It's a letdown. It's so violently quick, the Model Y now, and it's boring. To have something that's that amazing be boring is a real plus to the Plaid. And the yoke really gives you a sense that you're in something special, and everyone who gets in the car wants to touch the yoke, wants to try one of the buttons, experience the yoke. The center screen is much larger in the Plaid, and my kids and I love Stardew Valley and Beach Buggy 2, and it's that much better on the huge screen. The screen in the rear lets the kids YouTube as we whip around, and they're always saying, "Papa, go faster! Papa, go faster! Accelerate all the way! You know, Plaid, Plaid, Plaid." They're great. They love it. And the Y, for people who haven't been in the Plaid, is scary fast. People in Japan were just riding in it with me yesterday, saying it was a new sense of speed. It warped their brain. They didn't understand it. It was too quick. It was like the quickest roller coaster they'd been on. They were trying to find things to compare it to, and the Plaid is that much more bizarrely fast. On a very mundane note, the Plaid's really wide. The Model S is really wide, and Hawaii actually has quite a bit of highway. I'm not sure how many people realize the island of Oahu specifically actually has quite a bit of highway, but there's also a lot of narrow parking in these retail centers and condos that were built in largely the 1970s. And the Plaid is difficult. It's a lot of car. And so you have to go I have to go really slowly in these parking centers and these smaller roads, not the main highways, but the smaller roads. Whereas the Model Y, you can kind of whip around all the time. You have a great seating position, and the car is that much more narrow. Now, people also know I've made a wide body out of my Model S, so it's even wider than stock and has a huge wing, and I've made a race car out of it. But even just the door width, the most narrow point of the vehicle is huge. So what I really get excited about is the idea of a Plaid Model 3 or a Plaid Model Y or a smaller car that has the yoke and more than 1,000 horsepower. I will try to stay in the fastest car in the world if I can, regardless of its size, but I like it when those cars are small. So there's some update for you. So I've made race cars out of 2 Teslas now. One I made at the Tesla factory. So to my knowledge, it's the only race car made at the Tesla factory. Unplugged Performance
3,
has installed, a Model 3.
Yeah.
And that car's been sold to an individual. It exists. That individual also lives on the island of Oahu. So then I've made another race Tesla after being an employee, and they're very similar. So they look great near each other. Some people have seen my Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter.
Twitter as well, you have it. Yes. That's great. And for the ones that the owners of Tesla that are not Joe Justice, so they have to bring their cars to the service. I also heard in the Investor Day. The Investor Day, I did the live demo in my Spanish channel, and there were so many things that they were reminding me to our conversations. And afterwards, at the end of the investor day, I say, okay, guys, you have to watch the interviews with Joe Justice, because so many of the things that have been unveiled, they were only said by Joe. And one of the things that I think I didn't comment, but I saw in one of your videos, is the app to control Tesla owned cars, that they explained that internally the Tesla owners, you had like an app that allows you to control all the Tesla owned cars inside the engineering manufacturing. So how does this app work, and what is it useful for?
That was one of the more fun things out of being an employee. You could summon all the cars. Like as an employee, you get the master key app, and everybody gets it. Like, it's a very high trust environment. And if a car is assembled to the point that it can move on its own, which we try to make as early as possible, because then you use less carts and stuff, that happens pretty early, you can call them to you. And for those of you summon, it's the same. It's the exact same summon, but it's to all the cars. Or you can pick which cars, which is more often how you'd use it. But you use it constantly, in 2020, we used it constantly to move cars into different areas for you to work with them. So remotely, anytime where you might think, remotely, through your phone.
Wow.
So not even like a company phone, like your phone, the phone you walked in with, Android, Apple, whatever, and you'd summon the car. So you could select cars, or there's like the summon them all, right? And so you have all these cars just moving slowly to you. Now, what a lot of people, I think, would love to understand better is how radically free the development is. Very often you're working on something new outside the building, somewhere in the parking lot, next to a shipping container, or on the curb. So as you're walking from one place to another, or riding a bicycle, these facilities are huge, from one place to another to do something, to get something done, you're passing all of these groups of typically 3 to 5 people, and there's 1, 2, 10, 50 Teslas, depending what they're doing and what they need, and all kinds of tools. Maybe they're welding, maybe they're grinding, maybe it's all software, whatever they're trying to do. And they're anywhere. They're all over. They're in front of loading bays. And so you have to move that stuff when the delivery comes. And typically they're in contact with the delivery. There's typically no waiting. It ends up being very efficient. But the facility is so overflowing. When Elon talks about Fremont being spam in a can, it's true. I mean, truly, many times there's a group inside a car developing something, they're sitting in the seats, like 5 people, and they're working on something. And there's another group doing something totally unrelated on that same car on the outside, because just for space reasons. So you'd want to summon the cars regularly to move things around, or to bring cars to you so you can try something, or to move cars so you can bring supplies, or to bring cars to a next robot, because continually robots are being built to try different techniques, improve on a technique, or try something entirely new, try a different shape of the octovalve. There's a robot over here that's configured to try that. So you'd summon some cars over there to try that, test them. If they test, they join the flow again to be sold. And this is, again, part of what I try to say when I talk about cell-based manufacture. It's not a line. It's not like you take a car off the line for an experiment. You have these points of work anywhere, and the cars dynamically go between. Now, once the cars can drive, that's largely through summon. Before the cars can drive, it's on smart carts, or even there's a few that are even on tracks, but most of the time it's carts that can go anywhere. And so you basically summon the cart that has the materials on it that you want. And there are some forklifts for very, very early stages, or for delivering racks of parts.
Joe, I remember, I think it was on our second interview, you made guesses of how long would it take, like, different companies to reach the kind of level of Tesla, like in different parts of, like, the Musk way of running the companies. So I wanted to ask you, like, apart from the examples that we've spoken, in this presentation of the Investor Day, for like the type of things that Tesla does with digital twins, budgeting by teams and not by year, 2-feet law, World Cup, no ladder, see you on the trenches, no meetings, 1,000-year-long mission. Okay, 1,000-year-long mission was more or less clear. Like, which examples did I miss, or did they say that it really struck you? Or maybe we've spoken about most of them, I don't know.
One more time, I didn't understand which part.
Because you always say like how differently mass companies do things. Like you say, okay, they do budgeting like Silicon Valley budgeting and non-budgeting by year. They
Right.
do like the 2-feet law, like that you can walk to a person and join them. They do also the World Cups, like when there's a problem in the company, they send it to all the employees in an app and they gather together to solve this problem. They also, like, there's no ladder to climb, and the revenue, like the main way to get rewarded salaries are with stock options. Like all like the things that mass companies are different from traditional companies. In this Investor Day, did you see, like, apart from the things that we've already spoken in these 2+ hours, like, do you remember about something interesting that they've explained?
As you mentioned, some things were now said publicly that hadn't been before. The level of cross-functionality was made much more clear here than ever, except the Neuralink presentation showed cross-functional teams working together, mobbing together, and they showed their show and tell, their sprint review, their demo.
It was mind-blowing.
With teams at their mob tables, going from 6-month iterations to less than an hour iteration in the needle that goes in the brain. I mean, in hardware iterations, in embedded medical electronic devices, just phenomenal. Less than an hour iterations. Seeing on stage the cross-functional groups as a core technology, the working in the same room as a core technology is not brand new, but the detail and how many times it was said is new. The animation of unboxed manufacturing is what I wished the world had years ago. That has been true in a small version since Roadster, in a small version, but it's much more matured now. And that animation is phenomenal. But that's absolutely inspiring. What's exciting to see is the demonstration that pace is only speeding up despite company growth. And I believe Tesla is the only company in the world that is growing in headcount and increasing in speed of innovation. I believe that to be true. So seeing cited examples of pace of innovation increasing as headcount is increasing proves that. That's phenomenal. I didn't see, I wasn't able to be aware of a fundamentally new piece, like something as big as digital self-management. I didn't detect that again. Now that said, it's different outside the company. Having been in the company, there's a lot of depth that I think anyone who's been in the company can see behind these presentations. But I haven't been in the company in almost 3 years now, 2.5 years. So I want to say, I also saw this awesome new thing. I feel vindicated, released by the animation of unboxed manufacturing. Super the most. That's pretty hot. I love how you capped our last conversation with how many years would it take other competitors to catch up. I am working today with a large Japanese automotive manufacturing company. I continue to work with all of the world's automotive companies, German, Japanese, Italian, American, etc., wherever they're headquartered. I mean, interestingly, like the CEO of Mercedes-Benz is from Sweden. So calling it a German company is a little weird. And many of the employees in Toyota are from India. And I mean, the national like Olympic system trying to make it the World Cup is kind of broken. I mean, these people are from all over the world. It truly is a global world. Anyway, and they all pay taxes in multiple countries. So it's not like that company does it, more taxes go to that place. I mean, that's less true than before. These are really global, massive companies. But I'll say I've still not seen DSM anywhere. Anywhere. I've still not seen mob development as normal anywhere. I've seen experiments because I've set them up in all of these companies. I've not seen that as the normal cross-functional way of work anywhere. Also aerospace. I'm working in most of the world, I'm consulting to most of the world's aerospace companies right now. Satellite, airplanes, rockets, and some maritime, some marine, some boat, and submersibles too. And I'm not seeing this anywhere else, which is my sad point when we talked about, what about mining? Tesla has an example now. And I said, probably Tesla's going to have to get in mining. Good news for Tesla investors. It's going to be this massive additional growth vector for them, but too bad for other companies. The opportunity is still there. Tesla is still saying, someone else, please do it. I'm going to guess it's not going to happen. I'm going to guess Tesla's going to do it. And it sure looks like that's true across all of automotive, all of aviation, all of aerospace, all of maritime. These core enablers, just-in-time budgeting, like truly real-time budgeting, no budgets, no estimates, the Justice Board. I'm only seeing these as experiments and not the core way of working behind the majority of the product anywhere. So in terms of how many years till the world's caught up, they still haven't started the race.
So we will see. Maybe in our 1000th interview, you will tell me now they have reached the Tesla way, but it's already 2200 or I don't know when. And I liked one tweet from you. I think it was just after Investor Day that you said something like trying to explain the future value of Tesla today is like trying to explain the current value GDP to a 14th century shell trader. But there are only 4,000 shells of tradable quality. What do you mean? And this reminds me our first interview. You said like Tesla would 1000x from that moment, that I think it was like 1000 pre-split, so 330. After watching the Investor Day and after like the last years of development of the company, what do you think like Tesla would be value in our lifetime? Like more than 1000x, less, or what do you think?
Way more than 1000x, and it's weird because it's like talking to someone who's used to trading shells, right? So the concept of an economy, it seems rigid. There are only 4,000 shells of tradable quality, right? And that's, most people reason by analogy. So the only analogy we have is the current GDP and the current economy, to the extent that whoever we're talking to understands that. Musk is attempting a new economy as different. I mean, those transactions on Starlink in space is fundamentally different than individual regional governments attempting to control their own invented currency via inflation vectors and money printing. It is a different economical model. And Musk is trying to do that. And if Musk is successful, it's completely unchanged from the current concept of economy. Like someone thinking the economy is the number of shells we have. Someone now might think the economy is the number of nation states where people give a transaction price to their invented currency. Musk is attempting to have a public audited ledger in space that no one country, whatever a country means, no one military group can control, no one company can control, because it's publicly audited and it simply runs. I mean, Musk isn't directly in control. That's the idea of an audited crypto. Backed by an audited news system, community notes on Twitter, whether that's ultimately successful or not, the intention is having actual fact-based data on a non-company controlled, fully redundant, in space, low transaction cost, so you could use it to buy a cup of coffee and reasonably, right? Which currently that's Bitcoin's challenge. There's a very high transaction cost to move even fractions of Bitcoin, so it doesn't make sense to buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin. Doge is structurally optimized for low transaction cost, high transaction volume. It's attempting to be an entirely new economy, completely unchanged from the current economy. Okay, well, what does that have to do with Tesla as an investor? Tesla has just showed the best fundamentals increase and best fundamentals increase roadmap of any company in the history of manufacturing. So you have a unicorn of unicorns of unicorns that is publicly traded. And the CEO has given their promise that they will do good in making investors be protected, whatever happens in whatever public trading means. So Musk could lie, something really bad could happen. If you choose to trust Elon, and all of the massive, I love how Investor Day showed us how strong the team is and how broad and massive it is, right? I say Elon out of simplicity. Really, we should go through all these names for appropriate credit. If you choose to put any level of trust in them, what is known, it is the unicorn among unicorns, not only of our lifetime, but likely in the last 4,000 years. And that same group is attempting to not only ride along, but create a new economy. You can't even think of it in euro or dollar or rupee or yen equivalent share value. Like you could, within the next few years, you could say 1,000 a share, sure, easy. 10,000 a share, probably. 100,000 a share, yes. Then what is a dollar? What is a rupee? What is a yen? Like that is actually a play Elon is trying to make. And if Elon succeeds and you have direct transactions through your Neuralink, redundant in space, $1 million a share, equivalent production power, is fully reasonable, especially if we take on the concept that the economy is fundamentally control of labor. So the idea is if Optimuses and other derived systems are doing all the work, the real question is, do they do what you want or what someone else wants? And if some or a percentage or enough of them do what you want, then you have incredible power. Well, what's that worth in hundreds of millions of yen or euro or rupees today?
And Joe, you mean 1 million right now, like from the current stock, not pre-split?
Now again. So I originally made that conjecture, and that's more than the total amount of transactionable money. Pre-split, $1 million a share is more than the total. I will absolutely say, yes, post-split, that is true again. $1 million equivalent, a US dollar equivalent per share. And yes, that is far more than the total amount of money exchanged on planet Earth. By the time we're talking about that level, I'm talking about Doge traded from your Neuralink. So what's that, 7 years from now?
Yeah, who knows?
It's not so far out.
What I really like about this Tesla community and mass companies community is like it gathers extremely bright people from like different fields. And once that I watched like one of the, I don't know, Investor Day, Autonomy Day, AI Day, I tried to see like what the specialists in every field say. And for example, you are amazed about how agile Tesla's companies are, and you've worked there and you've explained. But then there's Sandy Munro, that he's like a top expert in like all the hard work that is done, that he's mind blown. And he said it like when he's been turned down. And also after Investor Day, he said, don't bet against Elon. But then after, I think it was AI Day 1, there was Lex Friedman. There's like one girl that is called Anastasia Ontek, that she's a hardware engineer. Like all the hardware and software and AI specialists, there's like one really good AI YouTuber in Spain that he's called Carlos Santana, that he usually doesn't speak very well about Tesla, but after AI Day, he said like it's maybe the most impressive tech presentation that I have seen ever. So it's really interesting. And also, for example, I don't know if you know Eric Berger. He's a writer of Ars Technica. He's one of the few 300 people that is followed in Twitter by Elon Musk. He's like really, really an expert in SpaceX and in space industry. And he's reading the book Liftoff, that it's really amazing about the first years of SpaceX. And he's also mind blown about how different and radical SpaceX is doing things in comparison to the average industry. So it's really, really interesting to see like all you people, experts in your fields, how amazed are by what Tesla and all the other mass companies are doing.
What I hope gets perpetuated is the seed that can make this thing. That's what I get really excited about. And I hope that's my accomplishment. What I try to do every week is I teach online training. I've got enough money. I'm basically retired, but I like it. I teach online training. And what I attempt to do is say, here's how you would run your company like SpaceX or like Neuralink or like Tesla or like the Boring Company. And I think I get a little better at it every week. And I think I'm the best in the world at it because it's my specialty, but I know I've got a long way to go. I do think a graduate from a Joe DX class, one of the online classes I teach, would know what to do, but I'm not seeing them do it yet. So what am I missing? Maybe the motivation isn't quite right, or maybe I haven't broken it down as simple as it truly is. Maybe I'm still speaking about it with more words than it needs, maybe better visualizations, and I'll relentlessly, in agile fashion, improve that online course. But I do believe it's the only way to recreate this right now is that model. And I believe I've articulated it more clearly, I believe, than anyone has, by several orders of magnitude. And I need it to get a lot better. So Alejandro and the world, please tweet at me, LinkedIn, Facebook. Public communication's better because then many people can react, as I attempt to be more clear about how performance reviews are handled, or rather why they don't happen and why that's okay in a Musk company, and then steps that could be introduced into existing companies, or how to set up your founding documents to make that likely in the company you're making. So whether it's a new company or you're taking it to an existing company. Because if people who want to, like you're saying, Alejandro, if an expert in AI can get excited about the AI that this system is producing, or a rocket, or a car, or an embeddable electronic device, or construction technology, it's not that specific technology that's the brilliance. That's the effect of this way of working. And it's not just Elon. Elon is not omnipresent. It's these other people are able to do it. Why? What is the set of rules? What is the structure? What is the seed? And I want so much to call it the Musk model, and it is, but I think only Elon can say something's the Musk model. So for now, I'll call my understanding of it Joe DX, the piece I understand, the piece Joe understands. And that's the goal. Yes, invest in Tesla. And while $1, a yen, a rupee still means something, you'll probably get to $1,000 a share, maybe $10,000 a share. And then before the concept of money breaks, that's where basically, do you want to be able to control Optimus or not? Buy Tesla stock, right? Like that's the answer. When Optimus is the labor economy, do you want Optimus to do what you say or only what other people say? Well, you should buy Tesla stock. Like Elon has said as much. He said that's what you do. So that's when it transforms into value. Like, what would you do if you had 10 shares of Tesla and they reach $1 million? And so basically you have $10 million of power, of labor economy power. That's going to be a very near mapping soon. Okay. Well, what else? What about for people who are passionate about astronomy or water sanitation and hygiene, or people who are passionate about eliminating or reducing rotavirus or improving maternal, child, newborn health outcomes? If you wanted the same level of amazing progress, positive progress and impact, and to be the number one place to work by graduating people in your field, which the Musk companies are, if you wanted that, what's your model? What do you do? How do you do it? How do you act? What rules do you set? What's your work hours? What should they be? How do you use email? Do you use email? What's your calendar like? What are your work practices? What are your sustainability practices? What's nutrition mean when you're trying to do that kind of thing? That's exciting because there's all these other areas not musked yet. And I hope that's what people listening to this podcast get excited to do, their passion. And whether they bring that into the company they're in, or create a new company with volunteers or excited people from the ecosystem around them, both are fine, and I hope we get a mix of both. But that is the success. Elon's not yet immortal. Maybe he'll figure that out, but not yet. So how do we continue this for the next 1,000, 100,000, million years of civilization? Let's be awesome. For that, we've got to figure out how to replicate the model. I'm doing my very best. Please help me. And please do it. We need successful case studies. Right now, it is only the Musk companies. I'm not seeing anyone else close. So if you're passionate about shoes or sweatshirts or bananas or coffee, whatever it is, make it so when someone watches your presentation about shoes, they get that excited. You made that much progress in what people thought could be done with that platform and that discipline, because no one's doing that right now. So maybe that's room for you.
And yes, and all the people that are watching have been watching so far, and they say, okay, I want to contact Joe to take the JDX course and learn about this and be able to do the Elon Musk of shoes, as you were saying, or of, I don't know, healthcare or whatever. Like, where should they contact you? Or like, what is their best way?
I have a website right now that lists all my services. So that's the easiest way to take a class with me, which is great. I mean, I charge some money as I use it to reinvest back in the products. That's abi-agile.com. And I'm sure you'll post it, but I'll share a screen too. Here's the Agile Business Institute. There's an English version of the site and a Japanese version of the site and a German version of the site. We work in every time zone and every language. So that's abi-agile.com.
It's really cool.
English, Japanese, and German. And the Joe DX class is actually the most advanced class. But if you're passionate, jump right in. The only prep you'd need is maybe to read my book or just jump right in. And that's treating the entire company as a unit, the software and the hardware and the management together. How do you run it like Elon would, the best I understand? For people who want to start at the beginning, There's a class on how to start level 1. It grants you what's called a certified Scrum Master credential. That's highly useful, but the course is not like any certified Scrum Master course I've ever seen anywhere else. It's a level 1. How do you get started? And then I introduce management, mapping management to digital self-management, and financial management and suppliers in the second level course, which happens to grant a certified Scrum product owner credential. For people who want more facilitation skills and coaching and mentoring skills, there's an advanced certified Scrum Master course that's becoming actually quite popular. There's a short version that's 3 hours long for executives called Executive Agile Transformation. Really, the long length classes that are all 2 days each are a better experience, but sometimes you only have 3 hours. So there's the executive class for that. All of these classes are in Japanese and English and are being ported to German also. And that's the range of vended services. For people who like that, I'd love to work with you there. I teach all of these directly. They're all live.
日本語を話せますか？
今上手じゃありません。すごくダメ。毎日勉強でも覚えてない。ひらがな、カタカナ、多分 80%、80% ひらがな、カタカナ、優しい。でも。
わかりません。でも、だから日本語勉強です。でも難しいです。I'm just starting, so I don't know much. I hope soon we will be able to do it in Japanese, the interview.
I hope Neuralink just solves that for us. Well, here's a really fun and more personal way for people who actually like whatever I'm about, like my personality. Maybe some people do. I use Duolingo to practice Japanese every day. And Duolingo, as far as I know, you can't message each other or anything, but if someone studies a lot, you can like give them a high five. So that'd be a really personal way. Like we can't even do any business that way. But I'd love it if people connected with me on Duolingo. So here, I'll share my Duolingo profile. Why not?
Let us show. By the way, I'm learning Japanese with Japanese from Zero. That is a YouTuber from Las Vegas. Wow. Joe 44035. Okay, so for the ones that are using Duolingo, they can contact you and high five you that.
That'd be pretty fun, and it really helps. I mean, I'm in that every day. I'm in Twitter too. Twitter's the fastest way to reach me, but also my YouTube channel, LinkedIn, and Facebook. But you were saying something far more interesting. You're working with someone on YouTube on Japanese.
No, I'm
skill.
just
How's
following. There's one Japanese teacher that he's called George Brankley, that he has some books that are called Japanese from Zero, but he has like a series of 100 plus lessons from zero to learn Japanese. So the basics, I don't know, the hiragana, katakana, and like the basic rules and grammar, I've learned it with him, and it's really good. I recommend it to anyone that wants to start from zero to use it, Japanese from zero. It's really useful. And coming back and just to wrap up this great interview, do you have anything else to say about Investor Day or Tesla or something that is exciting for you, especially after this presentation?
The fundamentals are the unicorn of the unicorn of the unicorn. Stock prices within a 10-year band tend to be reflective of business fundamentals. Shorter than that, they're heavily affected by media, press, etc. But for people that have the capability to hold, as a traditional investor mind, it was extremely exciting. As long as you could hold for up to 10 years, the return is likely to be better than anything else on the market, period. So there's that. Then the more broad definition of investor, people who like civilization and maybe innovation and an exciting future and getting out of bed in the morning. Wow. Because of the detail given, process are the parts that I get the most excited about. But the specific achievements and seeing the rate of them climb, we live in the most exciting time ever. For those of us who attempt to study history, we can say that with some confidence. I mean, if you want to live on Mars, you have a really good chance to try that. If you want to live in a cyberlander with Starlink, that's coming super soon. If you want to live in orbit around the Earth or the Moon or Mars, it looks like that's not far behind. That's part of the same technology stack that Cyberlander is developing, and other companies too, but Cyberlander is doing a really keen job. I'm happy to be part of that crew. And for those who like to make, for the makers, and I wish that was everybody, but I don't think everybody likes to make. I wish it was everybody, but for the makers, the increased modularity looks like your opportunity to be part of the ecosystem that the Musk company is making is growing. The payload form factor in Starship is published. So you can design and make stuff that Starship can move around. There's an opportunity for you to do that. The bed dimensions of Cybertruck are becoming more and more clear. And if you want to make accessories like Cyberlander or inside Cyberlander or partner with a company like that, there's that ecosystem. If you want to make racing on and off road accessories like Unplugged Performance does, you can partner up with them or do some of that too. The idea of a heat pump for home is still not here. So there's an opportunity for that. Now you'd need to do it as well as Musk would, or Musk will continue to do it, but you can. Large heat transfer and hydrogen, we don't see any movement on that yet, and mining too. So for makers, you have some really clear instruction. And how exciting is that? I mean, how much would people pay a top tier consulting firm to say, where should I take my mining business? Or what form factor should I use for my satellite startup or my established satellite business? Like, it's known, like those are solved. Impossibly exciting. So if you're a maker, there's great news. If you're a financial investor, traditional definition of investment, there's great news. If you're invested in civilization and exciting future, there's great news. If you're interested in recruiting and joining the Musk companies directly, it's great news. So far, they're only speeding up and they're only hiring. It's only growth. So you have opportunities in more and more geographies and with more and more native languages. There was no bad news. And I'm like everybody else, I was hoping for a product unveil. I really was. But I think we're going to get that super soon. Yeah.
And Joe, like you're the expert of the experts in my channel. So you know that we end up doing the say one word game that I have been making you sweat every time. So are you ready, Mr. Joe Justice, to say just in one word the thing that pops to your mind after I say these concepts? Okay? Señor Joe Justice, ¿cuál es la palabra que le viene a la cabeza cuando digo Tesla Gen 3 platform?
Everyone.
Unbox process.
I've got every word. Parallel.
Giga Mexico.
Tequila.
48-volt architecture.
Modern.
Hairpin rotors.
Inspired.
All the low voltage controllers designed by Tesla.
Cheap.
Tesla stock.
Moon.
And last but not least, the Tesla 2023 Investor Day?
I got to hang out with Alejandro. Is the benefit of that. Because of that day, I got to be here. That's my one-word answer is Alejandro.
Okay, thank you very much. As you know, and now we're going to have Chica Mexico, apart from the Japanese that you've shown us that you're learning, you have to say and learn some Spanish. So which better way than to end up our interview saying the traditional, hola, soy Joe Justice y estoy aquí para que triunfes.
Hola, soy Joe Justice.
Y estoy aquí para que triunfes.
Y estoy aquí para
que triunfes.
Que triunfes.
Okay, very good. We're getting it. We're getting it.
I need smaller pieces.